All right. Hi to everyone who is joining us. This is another Conversations with Women in Wellness, where I get to introduce all of you to a female professional with a heart to serve others and talk a little bit about what it is that they do, who they support, and what resources they may have available for you to explore. I'm Britt Reuter, of course, and I'm a functional medicine nutritionist serving women experiencing gut issues, hormone imbalances, and autoimmunity. I run a virtual clinic from my home in the Boston area, and if you want to learn more about me and what it is that I do, you can visit my website at www.brittreuter.com, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at NutritionBrit. Today, my guest is Katie Mack. Katie is a personal trainer, and she's located in New York City, and she has a degree in kinesiology from University of Massachusetts Amherst. She's so passionate about mind-body medicine, especially when it comes to exploring the connection between past trauma and current health status. Katie does more than help clients with strength training. She also helps clients learn nervous system regulation techniques and tools that they can use during emotionally or physically challenging situations. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So without further ado, welcome, Katie.
Hi, Britt. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this, and I think that people are going to get a lot out of this conversation. So let's go ahead and jump in. I know I just gave you a little bit of an intro, and I shared a little bit about what it is that you do, but could you expand on that a little bit and just help the gals that are listening to this conversation understand what it is that you do and how you do it?
Yes. So I consider myself a trauma-informed personal trainer.
Okay.
And to me, that means that I'm just aware of how a traumatic experience or experiences could affect somebody's body. And that could be, so one traumatic experience could be a car accident, it could be a surgery. And I mean, a car accident could impact you in certain places, and that might have an ongoing issue with a bone, a muscle, some type of movement pattern. Same with a surgery. Another type of traumatic experience might be one that would happen through childhood. This could be emotional. And because of how we see emotions come up in our body, like right now I'm a little anxious. So that means that I'm feeling like maybe like a little jittery in my body, or I feel like a little like sensation in my chest or my throat. And so a feeling or an emotion is not just a thought, it's a physical feeling. So when somebody has things like that come up, because it's just not affected for the brain, it's affected on your body. And so we can use the body to help regulate ourselves and calm down. So what I do is I use strength training, stability work, mobility work, breath work, some yoga, and then some nervous system tools that I'll talk about later that help ground you, make you feel more stable, help you feel more secure, maybe help you instill feelings of joy or happiness in your body, because those are all really important to help us feel more resilient.
So it's kind of, where we might experience trauma, in more of the mental, emotional sphere, there's those physical manifestations. And so, you're going from, mind, emotion to body. And then in your work, you're going from body back up into mind, emotion.
Yeah. So, or we're trying to affect the body so that we can affect the emotions.
Got it.
So, talk therapy might not always be a great venue for somebody. I mean, right. It is a great venue, but not for everybody. And depending on where you are in your process of recovery, if you're in trauma healing, it might not be great for you to talk about a certain experience, or you might not even be able to tap into the memory of the experience. It just might be manifesting in your body some way, and you have no idea why this is happening. So talk therapy is typically referred to as top down work, and then what I'm talking about is more like bottom up work, what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I could see how that would really help people experience breakthroughs who maybe, feel like talk therapy hasn't, quite got them to where they want to be in healing from those past traumas.
Yes. And even like I'm saying, like putting somebody or telling somebody to do a power pose. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
It's supposed to increase your testosterone, your cortisol. So like just being here for 3 minutes, research says it will make you feel better and feel more powerful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't really think about those things, like how we carry our body and how we use our body impacting our hormones and our mental outlook. So that sounds like such fascinating work that you do.
Yeah. It's so fun. It's great.
I can tell that you're really lit up about it. So really passionate about it. Yeah. So I know that you talk a lot about the mind-body connection and the work that you do. Can you just explain a little bit more about that crosstalk between the mind-body and maybe share a few examples of how you see that manifest in your work? Like, what is it that some clients that you work with might be struggling with?
Yeah. So the mind-body connection, I'm really glad is getting more attention lately, because there are a lot of mysterious conditions that are coming up, like autoimmune conditions that you talk about that people don't know the cause of, like fibromyalgia. No one knows the cause of that, from my understanding.
Right.
So, and I know in your nutrition work, you've mentioned the vagus nerve before.
Yeah.
So the vagus nerve has its influence on the digestive system, and the vagus nerve also has an influence on the social engagement system, or it is part of the social engagement system. So when that's not properly working, or we might go into a state of collapse, depending on the trauma or however we experienced life and learned how to deal with life, then we'll, go down our certain path that feels safest to us, even though it might not be the best for us.
Right.
So being able to work with the vagus nerve will help, overall health. Also, there's a lot of research on psychoneuroimmunology, which talks about the effect of the mind on health and immunity, and how emotions can really affect your immune system and your nervous system, and how that will eventually play out will manifest into some physical symptoms, physical conditions. Also, we just talked about, there is a sector of mind-body medicine. It's called sensory motor psychotherapy. Mm-hmm. And they talk a lot about how certain movement patterns and certain postures become like ingrained in us as we're growing up, and how we stop ourselves from doing certain movement patterns. So maybe like when we're a baby and we go to reach for somebody, we might not get what we want, so we stop reaching for things, and then over time we just lose that pattern in reaching for somebody and going through that movement pattern. Reaching for anything like help, asking for help, might play out in our life because we couldn't get that when we were younger, so that was never developed in us.
So it can even be things that are like before conscious memory, where we might not even be able to trace it back to a specific event. It's just a learned pattern.
Yes, a learned pattern. And yeah, a lot of things that especially like attachment disorders or attachment issues that come up over time, like and we see them in relationships, or maybe in how we even deal with money, how we deal with our health, how we deal with our work. That can usually be a result of how we were treated as a baby, and we might not have gotten what we needed as a baby. So that will just play out in our attachment life. So typically how I see, because I work in New York City and a lot of people are very stressed out, very frantic, very type A, want to be perfectionists all the time. I see a lot of that and a lot of like this. And I love those people because they're so driven and motivated, but they also they have sleep problems sometimes. They have adrenal fatigue. They just they have fibromyalgia. They have all different things, overweight, because maybe they're using food as a clutch for fun, for love, for things that they're not getting in their life. So I see it in all different ways, but I really like helping these people feel strong and grounded, because I think that usually manifests into them being more calm and getting better sleep, and them eating better,
Right.
just because they're more settled, and also giving them tools that they can use when they're alone or with somebody else that will help calm them down and maybe help them sleep too, or just help them with some type of emotion.
Oh, that's so interesting. And I mean, from like my perspective in functional medicine nutrition, I'll see people who are, say, struggling with some digestive issues,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe, like you said, even like autoimmunity, and we trace it back to digestive issues, where it's like, oh, that's interesting. You have, autoimmune thyroid, and you also have, some suboptimal digestion. And when you eat foods, you're experiencing heartburn. And so then, we might evaluate their digestion and see that they have low stomach acid. And I remember in school, doing case studies. And, they would kind of lay out a client like that. And, the correct answer would be like, oh, you need to add, a digestive enzyme supplement. That's how you help this person. That's the root cause of their autoimmune condition, is that they have low stomach acid.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always, get some, typically get some strange feedback from professors, because I'd go way deeper than that. Like, if that's the answer, I was like,
Yeah.
because I was like, why is their stomach acid low? Did they experience trauma as a child, and do they have poor vagal tone now?
Yes, that's great. Because
that is the root cause.
right. And if that's not being addressed, then who knows how else that's going to show up later.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's like, we know from observing the Western medicine model that's so obsessed with symptoms and silencing and suppressing those symptoms, that that's not how you achieve, true health. That true health can't really be found in a pill bottle. And that doesn't mean just prescription bottle, that's also a supplement bottle. You're just masking the issues.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, supplement bottle, like a lifestyle bottle.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's like, it's so nice, to learn about resources like you when you're really, in a position like what I've been, and maybe a lot of people that are listening to this conversation are in, where it's like, I don't want to just feel better. I actually want to be better. Like, I want to heal completely. And, and it's so important from my perspective, to find, people like you, that are like, hey, let's go deeper. Maybe there's something hidden that needs to be probed.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist.
No.
I feel like I love being able to help somebody with this, like, just discovery process, and just feeling better and seeing how they deal with emotions differently over time, because they do feel better in their body. And I just, that's really.
And maybe it's one of those things like where you have to approach it from multiple different angles, where you're like one of many people that, women can partner with in order to, overcome, some of the stuff that they've been through. Maybe it's like they need the functional medicine nutritionist, they need the talk therapy, and they need to work with you. Yeah. Awesome. Totally. So I know that we've talked just a little bit about this already in this conversation, but can you share your perspective on what trauma can look like? And I'm wondering if you've ever worked with clients who have felt that they, couldn't really use the label of trauma because what happened to them didn't match what they thought trauma was.
Yeah, no, so I've heard that. I personally haven't got that, because this is kind of like the last 2 or 3 years have been when I've started to get into this body medicine trauma approach. So I don't get anybody coming to me necessarily with those saying they had trauma, but now that I have like some 3, 5, 7-year relationships with some clients, I know their life, and no one's ever said trauma, but some people feel like, I know that some people have said like, I've heard this, I don't feel like that was a bad experience, like that to somebody else wouldn't be a big deal. And but trauma can look like anything to anyone. And if you didn't have something that happened to you when you were 7, might not be that big of a deal if it happened to you when you're 27. And it just really matters where you were in your life, what type of resources you had at the time, if it was too overwhelming and too big for you to deal with at the time, then I think usually then that manifest, or like then you consider it traumatic, or your body considers it traumatic, or your brain considers it traumatic.
Yeah.
So from what I study, I know that it can play out in your behavior. It can play out in how you deal with, and I mentioned this, it can play out how you deal with money, how you deal with relationships, how you deal with work. It could be GI distress. It could be autoimmune conditions, asthma, chronic pain, cardiovascular diseases, adrenal fatigue, eating disorders, exercise addiction, ADD, anxiety, depression, and like the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Wow. So it's really unlimited. Like it could show up in any way, and everyone's unique. So it's like, don't look around and say like, well, they've got trauma, I don't have trauma, because maybe trauma just looks differently on you.
Yes, totally. And yes, everyone is different. And that's what I was going to say, like, even from a nutrition standpoint, you have to give somebody a different diet. Everybody gets a different diet. Like not everybody can follow the same diet for their goals. And not to say that all those things I mentioned were necessarily caused by a trauma, but usually you can trace them back to there's some nervous system dysregulation happening. And it also might have something to do with, especially in like terms of actually almost anything, it could manifest this way, like how you view yourself and your self-worth, your self-acceptance, your self-image, and how that plays out in your behavior.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm curious, like, this has been like some of my experience, experiencing something that I am thinking could be traumatic. And then maybe I'll take it back to my family, like maybe back to like my parents or, my siblings, and say like, do you guys remember this? Like, that was really terrible, right? And then saying like, oh, you're blowing it way out of proportion. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, do you find that, I guess either you or, some of your colleagues in the field, like, do you hear that a lot where people, are maybe, I don't know how to like say it, maybe like talked out of their emotions, and like, that they feel like it's just downplayed a bit by the people that's around them, and it kind of makes them question their experience?
Yeah, but to me, I always wonder, like, is it really that they feel like what you're saying was too much for you and not too much for them? Or did they just not even want to deal with it and they don't even talk about it? That's
pretty deep. That's their trauma.
Exactly. Because I'm used to people dissociating and pretending like everything's okay, when really like, no, we should probably talk about this, but you don't want to talk about this. So I guess I got to go talk about it with somebody else.
Right. Maybe you need to do like a family package.
Oh, that would be all the family.
Bring everyone in, all the family.
All at the same time. Probably not all at the same time, depending on the dynamic. But
yeah,
right?
You have to have like a talking stick, like, okay, mom, here you go. Yeah.
Or like, you do squats, you do ball slams, get all your anger out. You do yoga, like all that.
Yeah, you need more restorative work. Yeah.
Yep.
So, one of the primary things that you help clients with is learning that nervous system or self-regulation techniques. Can you give us an idea of what some of these techniques might look like in practice?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, a lot of them are for just being able to feel resources of stability, strength, security, groundedness, peace, joy. And a lot of these I've learned over time from my strength training, and just been able to make sense of how they can make sense with helping somebody feel those ways.
Yeah.
And then also from my teacher, who hopefully you can link her things or her information in this at some point, Jane Clapp in Toronto. She's like a trauma-informed strength coach. Her Instagram is great. Her information is great. Like, I've learned so much from her. So some of the things I like to use in the gym specifically would be just focusing on feeling. So a lot of people don't like, it's easy to just blow through an exercise and like squat up and down for like, how long? I don't know. However, 10 reps or 30.
Squats aren't easy. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, right? They're not. And they're just, you can blow through an exercise and like get your heart rate up, but you don't necessarily feel your muscles. And just like people don't want to feel their feelings, people don't want to feel certain muscles because it is uncomfortable. It sucks. Like getting somebody to feel certain places when they're not used to it. even though it's uncomfortable at the time, I see it transfer to somebody slowing down after, because you actually cannot walk as fast because you're tired,
Right.
or your muscles are fatigued. So that calms you down both physically and mentally. I see a person, I know it personally, and I see it with my people, and they tell me the same thing. Core strength. So doing any core work can be really powerful, because your core protects your spine, and it makes, when you don't have that core musculature activated, you do feel maybe vulnerable. You don't feel as powerful or strong or stable or secure. So doing any core work is really great for people. So another thing I think of in terms of grounding is that, like, anxiety is the opposite of grounding or grounded. So you can play with that in all different ways. One way I would do it is to get somebody's hands on the ground or against a wall and just have them feel like a ground. So whether that be the ground or a wall, or even themselves, like you can make a ground with yourself against your hands, or feeling the ground through your feet, and how the ground supports you. A lot of times just using certain language can help people. So just saying, like, what about you lay on this floor and put your feet up on the bench, and like just feel the support of the floor, feel the support of the bench holding your legs up. Like sometimes that can help people just feel supported.
Yeah.
And feel better and calm. You can also ground through your pelvis. So I think I shouldn't talk about this because I'm not a yoga. Sometimes you can just, like, while you're sitting, you can feel your pelvis grounding you down in the chair or on the floor, wherever you are. So those are different ways. Foam rolling. So finding foam rolling that feels good. Rolling out your feet feels really good, I think. Maybe rolling out your chest, rolling out your back. Whatever feels good to you is regulating. And being able to really take the good feelings in. Jumping and shaking, like just, jumping on a trampoline, shaking,
being silly and moving around,
like shaking your leg really fast, like anything like that can help. If you're in a heightened state, that will help, like, bring you down. That can help bring you down a little bit.
Yeah.
Balance work is great.
Oh yeah.
For grounding also, I'm actually using one right now. A weighted blanket.
Oh yeah.
It's supposed to help you feel just grounded.
Yes.
The way I use it in the gym would be, we have sandbags, we have sandbells. I don't think I like having like a dumbbell or like a kettlebell on somebody, but
right.
Whatever, if you can use it on your belly, typically, usually your belly or your chest, those things feel good on, or your legs. Breathing can be really regulating for people, but I also know that it's not regulating for people, because some people feel it's too much for some people. They don't want to lay down. They're already too worked up that they can't even think about doing that. So I know who I can usually work with breathing on and who I can't work with breathing on.
Because for some people it might make them feel more anxious, or like triggering almost.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially when somebody's diaphragm is really locked up and they're not used to using, like, breathing properly, or their rib cage feels really tight because they're not used to breathing like 3D, fully expanding. That can be really hard for somebody and triggering, because they don't feel like they're getting air. So then you're just instilling stress from that.
Wow.
Putting somebody's legs up a wall is great, because that can help lower your blood pressure. And it just, again, you using the support of the wall, using the support of the ground can help ground you. Even giving yourself like a hug, your brain doesn't really know that it's not somebody else. So just like hugging yourself, giving yourself a pat on the back, that's really great. And then like something else I like is like since we always have our phones, and you can either write it down in your phone or you can make it a photo album, like a gratitude journal or like a happiness gratitude photo album. Because I think, like, when we get down and we get, angry or whatever, it's easy to just sit with those emotions. But like, if you have something that's with you all the time, like your phone, you can just go on your phone and look at your happy photo album and be like, oh, I had so much fun at that birthday party. I miss
Yeah.
that friend. I like just trying to bring up good feelings in your body.
Yeah. Oh, so it's almost like the work that you're doing, like from the outside, maybe it would look, like someone's just doing an exercise, like, oh, well, they're just doing a lunge.
Mhm.
But really a lot of the work that you're doing is internal, and like how you're, positioning yourself mentally, increasing awareness strategically, like maybe doing the lunge and thinking about how solid, you are and grounded you are, and really feeling, all of the muscles in your feet and your, calves and all the way up.
All the way up. Yep.
So it's not necessarily that the movement is, unique from the outside looking in. It's more of your just internal experience with those movements.
Yes,
Right?
totally. Yeah, that's it.
And it's nice, like you're saying, to work with someone like you, because, maybe someone, would have just dove right into like breathing techniques. Like, I'm going to go to yoga and we're going to do some deep breathing, and then felt even more anxious, even less safe, less grounded.
Mhm.
And then, gotten, maybe confused or discouraged and been like, this is not for me. But maybe it was just, something that they weren't prepared for.
Yeah,
And
totally.
that's something that you could help them with.
Right. And that's the other thing is sometimes, like, not, again, like a diet isn't for everybody. Sometimes strength training isn't for everybody, and it's not that fun, or it doesn't do anything, like, doesn't feel great to them. So you really have to explore and play and see what it is that you like. Like, maybe go do a Zumba class, like go do gymnastics, go do rock climbing, like anything that you have fun with, or that you feel like brings you emotions that bring you power and joy and freedom.
Do you think that like resistance around like doing some of those activities could be kind of a gateway to like deeper self-awareness? If you felt like that you were, not enjoying deep breathing techniques, or like not enjoying like strength training, like could that potentially be an indication that there is some like hidden trauma there that people would want to work through?
That's a good point too, because that makes me think of like a lot of things that I don't like, or like have come across that I don't like, because at certain times in my life, I don't think I really liked yoga until I found a teacher that I really liked.
Right.
Or I remember when I was at the trauma conference in Boston last year, we did this big group exercise where everybody was walking around and we were talking like babies, like we were babbling to each other and not having a conversation. I hated it. I hated it.
Oh no.
The woman working the seminar, she was like, if you don't like the technique, then it probably just means that you have something to look at about like not being able to communicate the way you want to communicate, or maybe feel like you look funny, so that's why you feel this type of way.
Wow.
So I think that's a great point. I think that certain things that you might see as like, oh, I don't want to do that, or I don't like that, or that looks stupid, or whatever your thought may be. It might just mean something more. It really might mean you just don't like it, but it just also mean that you, there's something inside of you holding you back, that maybe you're just insecure about, I'm not going to be able to do that, so I'm not going to do that. But like, maybe it will make you feel good if you go in and actually try it and you can accomplish it.
Yeah, maybe just like having like that curiosity there where you're like, oh, that's interesting that I'm having these emotions come up. Like, I wonder what that means. Like, is this just not an activity that resonates with me, or is this like triggering something?
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, that would be so interesting, because I know that I've never thought of myself as a very athletic person. And so, and I'm kind of a perfectionist. So I know that that's been, like a barrier for me to do things like go to the gym, because I'm like, well, if I'm not going to be perfect, then I'm not going to go, and I'm not the kind of person that works out. But by like kind of leaning into that, I feel like I, had a lot of emotions like come up, and it's been a good learning process, like self-exploration.
Yes. No, totally.
Yeah. But it would be, I think, it would have been much better if I had like partnered with someone like you that could, has been like, had more experience with this, because at first it just seems so simplistic where you're just like, I just don't like working out, but maybe it's something more.
Exactly. And it might be something that you be working with somebody, you might be able to learn in the gym. Like, I know some emotions come up for me when I'm working out. And I mean, I'm fine with working out wherever.
Yeah.
And, but emotions come up for me and I'm just like very curious, like, why do I think that way? Just because I did like, it's just, this feels really hard right now. And I feel like I can't do it. And I feel like I want to cry because I can't do it. And like, to me, that just means that's like indication of something bigger. Like,
Yeah.
I have some problem with like feeling like I can't do something, or if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's so interesting.
That I get overwhelmed or something like that.
Yeah. It's like kind of goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, like that crosstalk, where it's like, it's never just a mental thing or an emotional thing. And it's never just a physical thing. Like we're just one being, and there's, a lot of cross bleed between those different, buckets that like we like to think of them as, we're just one person, like holistically connected. Yeah. So maybe it's, something like you're saying, something physical going on that's tying back to something mental, or something mental that's going on tying to something physical.
Yes.
So what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is just waking up to how their past trauma may be influencing their life today?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say, so actually my teacher, because I think she puts it best, and she's mentioned this before, my teacher, Jane, talking about like, imagine that you're a statue and that you are trying to break out from that like hard mold, and you're really rigid, and just like breaking off little pieces at a time, and not thinking that you have to do everything at once and crack yourself to be able to move freely all at once, but be able to just like maybe move a finger. Like it's going to be like little baby steps towards recovery, and also it's like peeling an onion. There are multiple layers. And when you unpeel one layer, there's going to be more, there might be more underneath that. There probably will be more underneath that. And then going forward, there's going to be even more and more and more. And that you really just have to be patient and compassionate with yourself, which is probably the hardest thing. And I keep seeing more and more like people talking about self-compassion, and it's easy to be compassionate with other people. At least for me, it's hard to be compassionate with yourself.
Yeah.
And also being able to find resources and support that will help you, community, anything that you can, like, I know a lot of people have had their crap on CrossFit for a long time, but that's like one way that you can find a community. Maybe go to a yoga class that is a community, maybe find some type of book club. I don't know, any type of club where you have a community. That's going to be really good for you and your nervous system. And again, like finding what feels good in your body and playing, and always, because there's going to be plenty of times that we feel like crap, but like the more that you can actually like let the feelings of good sink in when they happen, and actually absorbing them, and being able to tell yourself like, oh, I have the capacity to feel good. I deserve to feel good. I think is really important.
Is that creating like a new pathway?
Yeah, that's like the science of neuroplasticity. Yeah, it's like rewiring yourself.
Oh, it's so cool to think about that we have the capacity to do that, because I think, from someone who's been through trauma, it feels like things happen to you, that you are a product of your like circumstances and your history. And I think it's really empowering, to acknowledge the bad things that may have happened, but like to not stay in that place of, victimhood, where it's like, hey, I can feel empowered to, create these new neural pathways, to create new behavior that's going to serve me.
Yes. And then all this other I actually heard a friend say this earlier. And I know, because I've heard people say like, learn to ride the waves of life. But like, if you think about it, you can't go and control the water. Like you just have to learn how to ride. And yeah, I was like, oh, I like that. You can't.
I do too. Yeah. I kind of got like goosebumps. It's like, oh, that is a good one. I like that.
You can't control your circumstances, but you can control how you react to them.
Yeah. And it's like kind of cool too, because I can like picture like a surfer being like really like strong and like having like, good grounding and, excellent balance, and core is engaged, and like all those things that we talked about. So it's like It's like full circle.
Oh, totally. No, I did surfing one time in Australia, and my core was so sore the next day.
Really?
I couldn't even handle it. I was like, so hard. Surfing was so hard.
You're so grounded, it hurt.
Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, and life is hard. Surfing's hard. Life is hard. You got to like learn how to ride with it.
I love it. I love it. So tell anyone who's watching this where they can learn more about what it is that you do, maybe explore working with you or connect with you on social media.
Yeah, so social media, I just use Instagram mostly. So that would be at Katie Mack Fitness, Mac, M-A-C-K.
Okay.
And my website is www.katiemackfitness.com.
Great. Well, that's so easy. So this has just been so much fun for me. I really enjoy nerding out on this stuff with you, and I get so much out of our conversations. So I know everyone that's listening to this is going to, want to connect with you, and you're going to want to learn more about the work that it is that you do. So I just really appreciate you taking the time today, Katie.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.